Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Japan and we're going to return to a brewery that has now featured on the channel quite a few times before. Now, these guys are still a relatively new addition to the Japanese beer scene, but they've built up a very good reputation for themselves over the last couple of years. And if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're most definitely best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. Over the last 6 months or so though, I've seen they've been diversifying a little bit and putting out different styles, so I think that's something that we need to keep an eye on going forward and try and get a few of those beers reviewed here on the channel. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is one of their latest releases at the time of filming, which is December 2024. It's a style I have had from this brewery a good few times before, one that I know they can do very well, and it's also one of the strongest beers I think that I'll have tried from this brewery as well. So quite a few points of interest here. Looking forward to trying this one, so hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head a little bit north of me here in Osaka up to Nagoya in Aichi Prefecture. We're going to go out to the east of the city to a little place called Nagakuta, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Totopia Brewery. So this particular beer is called Gravityphobia. It comes in at 8.5% ABV, and this one is another New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So this is one of the other beers that I picked up at their pub in Nagoya, Beer Pub Brick Lane. Along with the Force Phobia, which you will have seen reviewed a few videos ago. I just had to take these two because of their scientific names, and with me having a scientific background myself, I just like things like that. But yeah, another 8.5% hazy IPA from these guys. It should be pretty damn good actually. I think the last one actually, Force Phobia, was 8% ABV, so this is the stronger of the two, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, always nice to review new stuff from Totopia. Let's crack on with this one then and see what it's going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Totopia so far, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Japanese playlist along with a number of other things, and that's being added to quite regularly at the moment because I'm here visiting my son in Osaka, and I do come over here very regularly as well. But do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Totopia Brewery once again then. So, Totopia Brewery, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Nagakuta, which is in Aichi Prefecture, just to the east of Nagoya City. So the brewery was founded back in 2022, and it's the latest venture of the team behind Beer Pub Brick Lane in the city. So Beer Pub Brick Lane was founded back in 2014 by Junior Morita, along with his wife Akiko, along with a couple of friends, and it's become a well-known beer and burger spot in the city. So the following year they started the Nagoya Craft Beer map, and they started market research in the US in order to form their own import company, which began importing American beers into Japan back in 2017. They then opened up their own beer shop known as Used Like New Beer in 2018, and this also acts as a sandwich shop as well. But at this point, they decided they wanted to get into brewing beer, and they started planning to form their own brewery. And so they chose the name Totopia as a combination of the Japanese word toto, which means like precious, valuable, revered, and also utopia. You know, everybody knows what utopia means. But the location of the brewery had originally been decided as Saito City, but this had to be changed quite suddenly, and they found their current plot of 600 square meters in Nagakuta, which, like I mentioned earlier, is east of Nagoya. And the brewery released their first beers during the second half of 2022. They do plan to focus on using as many local ingredients as they can where possible, and they've been harvesting their own hops over the last little while as well, from what I understand. And that's kind of a big thing actually with a number of Japanese breweries, so we'll need to see how that progresses going forward. But as of December 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 140 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and like I mentioned to you earlier, these guys are particularly well known for their New England Hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs, but also they are starting to diversify a little bit more very recently, so we'll need to see what other things they come out with going forward. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Totopia Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all of the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and actually have a little look at the beer itself. So this one is a 500 milliliter or half liter can, however you want to term it. I'm not sure what I paid for this one actually, because as I say, I bought it in the pub and we had food and all this kind of thing with it. But yeah, nicely presented can. This one you can see, I'm not sure exactly what that is supposed to be on the artwork there, if it's just meant to be like, you know, flying saucers or something kind of sci-fi looking. Actually, it's a little bit abstract, but there you can see one of the Totopia Brewery symbols on the bottom there. That's also round on the side art here, and you can see Gravityphobia, triple dry hopped hazy double IPA, 8.5% ABV, plain silver top on the can there. And yeah, the hops in this one are Mosaic and Incognito, Nelson Sauvin CGX, I'm not sure exactly what that is, but Simcoe and Citra. So Incognito, of course, is a hop oil product, so we're going to get a nice oily green component out of this one. But yeah, Mosaic, 14% alpha acid, American hop. It's going to give you a little touch of earthiness in its green component, but quite a lot of juicy tangerine. Nelson Sauvin, the classic New Zealand hop, 16% alpha acid, you know, lovely white, green, grapey flavours, a little bit of gooseberry perhaps. Simcoe, 12% alpha acid American, it gives you a lot of passion fruit in my experience. And then Citra can do a whole host of things. 14% alpha acid American. In a New England IPA, it's going to give you a little bit of peach and passion fruit and quite a lot of mango and things as well. Sometimes a wee touch of like lemon limey character as well. But yeah, all in all, should be quite an interesting beer, this one. The Force Phobia was good, and you know, this is a style that this brewery have a very good reputation with. So let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what it's all about. The Gravityphobia from the wonderful Totopia Brewery in Nagakuta, to the east of Nagoya in Aichi Prefecture here in Japan. Let's do this. And if you are interested in the Japanese craft beer scene, yeah, Totopia are one of the breweries that I really would recommend that you check out. One of the, well, they're already very well regarded, but I would still regard them as kind of up and coming, because they are pretty damn new, of course, compared with some of the other ones that are out there. But yeah, I think that's enough of the beer out into the glass for the moment. We've got about 80% of it, I think, in there just now. But yeah, you can see that it's poured with about a finger and a half of a frothy, I would say slightly cream coloured head. I wouldn't describe that as being perfectly white, but you can see lovely small bubbles on the surface of the liquid there, and the head gets a little bit more soapy the further up you go. There you can see the Mino Beer Monkey, local brewery here in Osaka. But yeah, colour wise, this beer is a lovely kind of pale mixed tropical fruit juice. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass there, and a few just going up towards the bottom of the head there. But yeah, colour wise, this one's very nice. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. And yeah, that effect can vary from beer to beer and brewery to brewery, but you know, you don't have to care about that too much when it comes to different kinds of IPA. One thing I'm noticing about this one is that the haze on this is pretty damn opaque actually. So remember that in a New England IPA, the level of haze you have depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. But that can all vary from brewery to brewery and beer to beer as well. But all in all, appearance-wise, this one is pretty much what you would expect from any New England IPA. You can see the head has just receded a little bit there, but yeah, really, really nice looking beer, this one. So I think we've said everything we need to about the appearance. Let's go on and have a wee look at the aroma of this one then. I'm very, very curious about this. Oh, that does smell very nice. Should actually point out, I forgot to say, I filmed an out and about video at Beer Pub Brick Lane. I'm not sure if that will have published at the time that this video publishes, but I did try this beer in Beer Pub at Brick Lane. So yeah, this is the second time I'm tasting this one. But yeah, we can maybe make some comparisons between the tap version and the canned version. I will say, I think the aroma on the canned version is a little bit more pungent actually than what I remember from the tap version. But then again, this is my first beer that I'm filming this particular evening, whereas it was the third beer I think I tasted at Brick Lane. So yeah, that's worth bearing in mind with this one. But yeah, aroma wise, this is very, very nice. In terms of New England IPAs, I would say that this one is a little bit of a mix between kind of being oaty leaning and wheaty leaning, but there's quite a bit of barley coming out of this one as well. As I've often said in my New England reviews, for me there are 6 elements to think about when it comes to the malty and yeasty side of a New England IPA. You've got the kind of farmhousey yeasty character, the rye leaning grainy side of things. Those 2 elements are a bit more common in New England brewed New England IPAs. That was kind of what the style was like originally, a kind of farmhousey IPA. But as the style has evolved, other things have kind of come to the fore, especially when the beer is not brewed in New England itself. So you've also got wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and also your sweeter side of things. For me, this one has a good balance between the sort of barley bread, the wheaty bitiness, and the oaty creaminess. So it's not too sharp, a wheaty character that's coming out of this. I will add that. But yeah, the green component on this one you can smell. It's got a nice little bit of brightness to it, but kind of oily because of the incognito. And you've got a good mix of fruits going on in this one actually. So yeah, let's just break the aroma down and describe it for you a bit more in depth. So yeah, the backbone of this beer for me, lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. That is absolutely the backbone of the beer. So yeah, fresh white bready bread crust in there. A little bit of Jacob's cream cracker. Yeah, a little bit of kind of Jacob's cream cracker in there. A wee tiny touch of woodiness as well. There's a very, very small hint of like a kind of wholemeal brown bready character in this one. But yeah, lovely fluffy white bready notes in there. And also a little bit of a more dense wheaty white bready character. I will say the wheat in this one is actually quite smooth. That makes me think maybe American wheat in this one. As I've often said on the channel, you know, European wheat and malt, generally speaking, is that little bit drier than American malt is. It could be Australian wheat as well, actually. But yeah, the wheaty white bread in this one is really, really quite smooth. But there is a little bit of that bitiness in the back of the nose. And on top of that, you've got a wee bit of oaty character coming out of this one. And the interesting thing is that the oats are that little bit drier too, and that makes me think American oats, because European oats are just a bit more kind of creamy. But you can also use oats as a rough indicator of how fresh your IPA is. But yeah, essentially the younger the beer is, the creamier the oats are, the older the beer is, the drier they are. But yeah, this one I know is pretty damn fresh actually, because it was bought from the pub and they told me it was fresh. So yeah, but yeah, a little bit of oaty creaminess in there, but the oats are a little bit drier, I would say. This beer doesn't have too much sweetness to it either. A little bit of Werther's Original, little touch of biscuit, but as I say, I think that takes a back seat to other things. Yeah, so aroma wise, this one's quite interesting on the malty side of things. The yeasty character on the back of the nose is kind of white bready, but it has a little bit of a more crackery, yeah, it's got a little bit of a more sort of crackery type note to it, and also it's got a little bit of a more sort of crackery note to it, and a wee bit of a kind of fresh brown bready sort of note. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really nice. So yeah, I like the way the malty and yeasty side of this one goes together. Don't think we need to say too much else about it. So yeah, onto the hoppy side of things then. This one's got a lovely, very smooth green component. So when it comes to hopping your IPAs, there are 3 different kinds of hoppings you can do. You can do early edition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort ball. That gives you mainly bitterness and a deep kind of dank flavour, aroma component. You've got late edition hopping, which takes place within the last half hour of the wort ball. Gives you a little bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma, and it gives you a very bright green component. But then you have dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that one is all about flavour and aroma. And again, it gives you a very kind of bright green component. So yeah. For me, for New England IPAs, I should say, they tend to rely on late edition and dry hopping, which is why they're kind of softer and more juicy. West Coast IPAs use all 3 types of hopping, which is why they're a bit deeper, danker, and more bitter, of course. So yeah, for me, the green component of this one really leans toward that nice, bright floral aromaticity. There's a good little bit of grassiness going on in there as well. And again, it's quite oily, little touch zesty. And then yeah, you have that little bit of earthy character coming out of this one as well. So yeah, all in all, the way this beer goes together, I think, is quite interesting from the perspective of the green component. But the oiliness is definitely coming from the use of Incognito, and I think the CGX, I'm guessing, is probably some kind of hop oil product as well. Yeah, in terms of the fruitiness in this one, it's what you would expect if you know these hops. You know, Nelson Sauvin, Mosaic, and Citra is a fairly commonly used combination. Putting the Simcoe in there as well isn't going to change the makeup of that aroma profile drastically, but it's going to add going to make it lean a bit more toward the tropical side of things. So for me, with the fruity side of this one, you've got a really nice balance. You've got a little touch of the peach from the Citra, big juicy mango, and the passion fruit obviously in there, a little bit of apricot I think underneath from your Citra and Simcoe. The passion fruits from the Simcoe, I would say. But then yeah, you've also got that nice white green grapey gooseberry note from the Nelson Sauvin, very distinctive. Then at the very front of the nose, you get that little bit of well, not a little bit, you get that big bit of juicy tangerine orange from your Mosaic as well. But yeah, aroma wise, this one is a really, really nice smelling beer, very attractive. Kind of gives the impression that it's going to be a little bit more oily rather than anything else. So we'll just need to see how we go with that. But yeah, as I always say, take a bit of time to just enjoy the aroma of your beer before you get stuck into it. That's always half the experience when it comes to craft beers. But yeah, I think this one is going to be nice to try, so let's get on and do that. So yeah, this is the Gravityphobia, an 8.5% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. Citra, Simcoe, Nelson Sauvin, and Mosaic in this one. Let's have a go and see how it is. Slange, skål, cheers, kampai. Ooh. That is pretty nice, I have to say that. Feels a little bit cleaner and also a little bit drier, I think, than it did on tap. It's a little bit drier into the aftertaste, that's for sure. And I think there's also a little bit more wheaty bitiness coming out of this one in comparison to what I was thinking it would have from the aroma. I need to watch back the review of this one that I did at Brick Lane and just see what I think, actually. But yeah, overall, very, very nice New England Double IPA. This one, I will say, it feels very, very fresh. This one, I think this is even fresher than the Force Phobia that we reviewed a couple of videos back. But yeah, this is nice. So yeah, thumbs up once again to Totopia Brewery for this. Let's do as we always do, and we'll break the beer down and just describe it for you that wee bit more in depth. I'm thinking there's a bit more IBU to this one, which is interesting. So yeah, let's go to the middle third of the palate then, as we always do. So yeah, for me, the backbone of this beer, as it often is a lovely little bit of fresh white bready bread crust. You've got that there. As you go forward towards the front of that middle third of your palate, you get a little tiny touch of woodiness there, which comes out into the aftertaste. Then you get that wee sprinkling of like Jacob's cream cracker, as I often talk about. There's a very, very tiny layer of like wholemeal brown bread in this one, but the middle of your palate is mostly white bready character in this one. So above that cracker and brown bready layer, you can feel that more airy white bready layer coming out of this one. So that's that lovely barley malt white bread coming out of the beer, which is in this case very, very nice. So yeah, I do really like how that pieces together in this one. Yeah, so on top of that kind of fluffy white bready character, you get that nice dense white bready note out of this one, and that's the wheat. Like I said, I think this beer in its flavour, it has a more bitey wheaty character than than it does in the aroma, I would say. So yeah, with the wheaty white bread there, you can feel it's a little bit smoother further forward on that middle third of your palate, but definitely further back, it's got that little bit more kind of bitiness to it. So yeah, I do like how that one goes together. So yeah, the oaty character in this one, I think, comes out the more that you drink of this beer, and I think if it warmed up a wee bit, you would get more and more of the oatiness out of it. But definitely down that middle line of your tongue, you get that more kind of creamy oaty character, and as it moves out toward the edges of the palate, it's definitely got that little bit of dryness coming out of it, and yeah, you feel that more and more into the aftertaste. In the dead centre of your palate, you've got that little circle there, which is you get a little bit of like a Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy note coming out of the beer, which is really nice. So for me, you get that little bit, that's the booze obviously that's giving you that flavour, and as you move further out from it, you get a wee bit of a sweet kind of McVitie's digestive, biscuity kind of character coming out of it, which I think is really interesting. I don't know if there's much else to say about that middle third of your palate, but I do feel that the sweetness in the middle of your palate kind of builds up a wee bit in this one, the further into the aftertaste that you go, so just keeping a wee eye on that. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say, pardon me, about the middle third of your palate with this beer. So yeah, let's go to the back third of your palate. And as I've often said, sweeter flavours will come out further forward on your palate, more dry and bitter flavours will come out further back. So yeah, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that little bit of bready build up in there again, the wee touch of brown bread in the base, the fluffy kind of barley malt white bread in the middle, then the more dense wheaty white bready character on top. Then yeah, the back third of your palate, you've got that little bit of you've got that wee bit of white bready bread crust underneath, but it feels a little bit drier, of course, because you're further back on the palate. The crackers in there. Then you've got the brown bready layer feels a little bit more kind of light, taller, and more airy, I would say. Then you have the kind of white bready layer sitting above that, which again is lighter, taller, and more airy. And then coming over the top of that, you have the wheaty part of the beer. And the wheat on the back third of your palate really is that little bit more kind of bitey, I would say. Yeah, and then above everything else, you've got the yeasty side of the beer coming out of this one. So yeah, yeasty side of the beer for me is yeah, quite. It's kind of a little bit like almost feels a little bit like sourdough bread actually in a way. But yeah, you've got this lovely sort of sweet white bready character at the core. Then as you move further out from it, it becomes a little bit more kind of like a crackery, farmhousey white bread, and then the very edge of it is just like a kind of white bready bread crust. So yeah, that's your yeasty character sitting on top of everything else on the back third of your palate. So yeah, definitely back third of your palate, the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, it kind of just condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, I think we've covered the malty and yeasty side of this beer. The only other thing I would add is that it gets a little bit drier into the aftertaste. You get a wee bit of that more kind of white bready bread crust coming out of this one. But yeah, you get more wheaty character out of this one into the aftertaste too. But malty and yeasty side of this beer is very nicely done. Hoppy side of things then. Back corners of the palate, you've definitely got that little bit of earthiness from the mosaic in there. As you move further forward, there's a little touch of herbal character in there and a wee touch of a deeper, danker pine resin coming out of this one. But then yeah, as you move further forward along the sides of the palate, it's a little bit more kind of floral and aromatic for sure, and then a little bit spicy as well. But round the front curve of the tongue, it's that little bit lighter and more kind of grassy as well, I would say. So a little touch kind of oily, which is nice too, but a wee bit of zestiness coming out of it as well. So yeah, a nice mix of yeah, a nice little bit of floral aromaticity and a wee bit of kind of grassiness as well actually. But yeah, nothing unexpected in that green component there. Let's look at the front third of your palate then. So yeah, border region then between front third and middle third of your palate. You've got that little bit of bready build up once again, the wee bit of brown bread in the base, the fluffier white bread in the middle, then the more dense wheaty white bready character on the top. There's a little bit of bitiness there, but yeah, the base of that front third of your palate, you've got that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust again, a little bit of cracker, the brown bread, the white bread, and the more dense, smooth, wheaty character in there. But then yeah, above that you get that nice oily bubble where you get the kind of juicy, fruity esters roll on their way out of the beer. And I think this one's quite interesting in the way it goes about its business, because getting a wee bit of the citrus showing its kind of more punchy side almost. So yeah, at the back of that front third of your palate, you get a little touch of the grapefruit, which will be from the citra. Then you get the peach, the mango, and then underneath like a softer passion fruit. And as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, particularly into the aftertaste, there's a wee bit of apricot in there, and you know, the citra, and yeah, it's the citra pardon me, that went down the wrong way. It's the citra and the simcoe that are giving you those tropical fruity notes. And then as you move into the front half of the front third of your palate, it's all about the mosaic and the Nelson Sauvin. So the Nelson Sauvin kind of sits underneath and gives you that kind of how would you say it? It gives you that white, green, grapey, gooseberry type note, and then yeah, you get a little touch of lime just behind the very front tip of the tongue, which I think is going to be the citra in all honesty. But then yeah, on top of that, you've got a lovely kind of white, you've got a lovely kind of orangey, tangerine note from from the mosaic in this one. So yeah, the way that that goes together is really, really nice. Yeah, I like that. So yeah, I think that's everything we really need to say about the. I think that's everything we really need to say about the fruity side of this one, and then the overall flavour of the beer. So yeah, really interesting one. This I'm getting more and more bitterness out of this beer into the aftertaste, like kind of floral aromatic and piney resiny notes, and a wee bit of the kind of lemon limey zestiness that you can sometimes get from Citra, and a wee bit of the grapefruit as well, actually. So yeah, a few interesting things going on with this one. I think the canned version of this beer is definitely more bitter and kind of citrusy leaning than I remember the tap version being. The tap version was a little bit more oaty and kind of creamy and things like that too. So yeah, it just goes to show you how conditioning can affect a beer. But let us round off this review then with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. So for me, this beer, I think this is pushing top end of mid-bodied. Carbonation on this one's really nice and smooth. It's got a lovely wetness to it, but a nice kind of oily and slick character as well. Maybe a slight touch of creaminess in the beginning, but then it becomes drier in the aftertaste. I think the IBU in this one's a bit higher, maybe like 50 or 60 IBUs. It just feels you've got a little bit of bitterness on the side of your palate, which kind of lingers into the aftertaste. But yeah, the malty side of things, you've got a bit of dryness underneath, smoothness in the middle, and a kind of creaminess on top with a very, very slight sweetness. And then the fruity side of this beer, it has got that grapefruity and lemon limey kind of pungency to it. But yeah, the way that goes together is quite interesting. You get a bit of a softer tropical note in this one earlier on, and then the kind of oily notes from the Mosaic and Nelson Sauvin too. But really interesting beer, this one. A wee bit, it's interesting because it's quite different from how I remember this one being on tap. But still another very, very solid New England double IPA from Totopia, which I wouldn't expect anything less from these guys. So yeah, I think we can, pardon me, getting quite a bit of gas out of this. I think we can leave it at that for this one. This has been a really nice beer to review, and it's shown a different side to Totopia as well. I wonder if this one is. I might have been better to let this can kind of sit for a week or two, but I'm only in Japan another wee while, so can't really do that with this. But yeah, I think I'm drinking this one just slightly too fresh. It maybe could do with another week or so in the can just to mellow out that wee bit more. But another very, very good New England hazy from these guys, and yeah, that's not surprising. So let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Totopia as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But this was the Gravityphobia, an 8.5% New England hazy Imperial Double, if you want to call it IPA, from Totopia Brewery in Nagakuta near Nagoya in Aichi Prefecture here in Japan. Check out my social media, check out their social media, and I'll catch you guys in another review very, very soon. Till next time, Slange, Skål, cheers, and Kampai.